The night before the most important interview of my life, I found my only blazer soaking in bleach in the laundry sink. My sister stood beside it, smiling like she had only made a small mistake. My parents told me to stop overreacting. "It's just a jacket," my mother said. But it wasn't just a jacket. It was the only professional thing I owned after years of paying their bills, covering my brother's debts, and giving up everything they demanded. So the next morning, I wore that ruined blazer into the interview anyway. And when the dean saw my last name, everything changed. My name is Emily Carter. I was 27 years old when I learned that some people do not have to be strangers to become your enemies. That night, I came home from the hospital after a 12-hour shift with my feet aching, my eyes burning, and my heart beating with one thought. Tomorrow. Tomorrow was my medical school interview. Not just any interview. It was the interview I had spent nearly 6 years fighting for in silence. While other people my age posted vacation photos and engagement pictures, I worked in hospital billing during the day, took night classes online, studied anatomy during lunch breaks, and saved every spare dollar in a shoebox behind my closet. My dream was simple. I wanted to become a doctor. Not because it sounded impressive. Not because I wanted people to call me special. I wanted it because when I was 11, I watched my grandmother die in a hospital bed, holding my hand and whispering, "Emily, you were born to heal people." She was the only person in my family who ever said my dreams out loud like they were real. My parents never did. To them, I was the useful daughter, the dependable one, the one who paid the electric bill when Dad's hours got cut, the one who gave Mom grocery money when she said she was short, the one who lent my brother Tyler money after every emergency and never saw a penny back. My younger sister, Vanessa, was different. Vanessa was the pretty one, the delicate one, the one who needed help, attention, patience, forgiveness. If she made a mistake, my parents called it stress. If I asked for support, they called it selfishness.
So I stopped asking.
I bought my interview outfit myself from a secondhand store 3 months earlier. A navy blazer, slightly tight at the shoulders, but clean and professional. It cost me $42. I remembered standing in the thrift store mirror, wearing it over my faded work blouse, and feeling something I had not felt in years. Possible. That night, I walked into the house quietly, carrying my folder of recommendation letters and a plastic garment bag from the dry cleaner. I wanted to steam my blouse, polish my shoes, review my answers one last time, then sleep for at least 4 hours. But the moment I entered the hallway, I smelled bleach. Sharp. Chemical.
Wrong.
I froze. From the laundry room, I heard running water. Then Vanessa's voice. Oh no. Not shocked. Not guilty. Almost amused. I dropped my bag and rushed toward the laundry room. My blazer was in the sink. My only blazer. The navy fabric was soaked, twisted under the faucet, with ugly white patches spreading across the sleeves and front like spilled paint. A bottle of bleach sat beside it with the cap still open. For a second, I couldn't even move. My brain refused to accept what my eyes were seeing. Vanessa stood next to the sink in her pink pajama set, one hand over her mouth, but her eyes were smiling. "I thought it was one of Dad's old jackets," she said. I stared at her. "It was in my garment bag, hanging on my bedroom door." She shrugged. "Then why was it so close to the laundry?" "It wasn't." My voice came out colder than I expected. That was when my mother appeared behind me, tying her robe. "What is all this noise?" I pointed at the sink. "She ruined my blazer. My interview is tomorrow morning." Mom looked at the blazer, then at Vanessa, then sighed like I had inconvenienced her. "Emily, don't start. Don't start." I repeated. "Mom, this is the only professional jacket I own." Vanessa crossed her arms. "It was an accident." I looked at her. Say that without smiling. Her smile vanished. Dad walked in next, rubbing his eyes. "For God's sake, some of us have work tomorrow." "So do I said. "And an interview that could change my life." He glanced at the blazer and frowned, not with concern, but irritation. "It's just a jacket." Something inside me cracked quietly. Just a jacket. Just like it was just money when Tyler borrowed from me and never paid it back. Just like it was just family when Mom used my savings for Vanessa's bridal deposit without asking. Just like it was just helping out when Dad told me to delay my classes because the house needed me more. I stepped toward the sink and turned off the water. The room went silent. Vanessa whispered, "You're being dramatic." My mother grabbed my arm. "Stop making a scene." I looked down at her hand, then slowly pulled away. For the first time in my life, I did not apologize. I lifted the blazer from the sink. Bleach dripped onto the floor between us. The stains were everywhere. The sleeves, the lapel, the front pocket, ruined. But as I held it, something strange happened. I stopped feeling embarrassed. I stopped feeling helpless. Because suddenly, I understood this was not an accident. This was a warning. They did not want me to walk into that interview looking confident. They did not want me to leave that house with a future they couldn't control. So I carried the blazer to my room, shut the door, and locked it. For 10 minutes, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the ruined fabric in my lap. Then my eyes moved to the bottom drawer of my desk. Inside was an old folder I had kept for years. Receipts, bank transfers, copies of bills I had paid for my family. Notes from my grandmother's belongings that my mother once told me were not important. I opened the folder with shaking hands, and under the papers, I found an envelope I had forgotten about. My grandmother's handwriting was on the front. For Emily's education. My breath caught, because attached to it was a document I had never truly understood before. A trust record, with my name on it. I did not sleep that night. I sat on my bedroom floor with my ruined blazer spread across my knees, the envelope beside me, and my grandmother's handwriting staring back at me like a voice from another life. For Emily's education. I read the trust record again and again, trying to understand what it meant. There were words I recognized: beneficiary, education fund, medical expenses, tuition support, but the dates confused me. My grandmother had signed it years before she died. My name was printed clearly on the first page. Emily Rose Carter. Not Vanessa. Not Tyler.
Me.
At the bottom was the name of a law office I had never heard of, and beside it, a note in my grandmother's handwriting. She will need this when the world tells her no. I pressed the paper against my chest and closed my eyes. All those years, my parents had told me there was no money, no help, no inheritance. Nothing left behind except a few old photographs and a box of kitchen dishes. And like a fool, I had believed them. At 6 in the morning, I stood in front of my mirror. The blazer looked worse in daylight. The bleach stains had dried into harsh white patches across the navy fabric. One sleeve looked almost painted. The lapel was streaked. There was no way to hide it. For one weak moment, I almost took it off. Then I heard Vanessa laughing in the hallway. "She's actually going," she whispered. My mother answered, "Let her embarrass herself. Maybe then she'll understand she's not doctor material." I froze with my hand on the button. Not doctor material. I looked at myself again. My hair was neat. My blouse was clean. My shoes were polished. My folder was ready. The only thing damaged was the jacket they had touched. So I wore it. When I came downstairs, Vanessa was sitting at the kitchen island with coffee, scrolling on her phone. She looked up and smiled. "Oh wow," she said. "Bold choice." I ignored her. My father lowered his newspaper. "You're wearing that?" "Yes." My mother's face tightened. "Emily, don't make this family look bad." I picked up my folder. "You already did." Nobody spoke. For once, I left before they could find another way to stop me. The medical school building was beautiful in a way that made my stomach twist. Tall glass doors, marble floors, framed portraits of doctors and researchers on the walls. Everyone around me looked perfect: tailored suits, expensive shoes, calm smiles. And then there was me, a woman in a bleached blazer, holding her folder like it was the only thing keeping her upright. A few applicants glanced at me. One looked away quickly. Another whispered something to the person beside her. I felt heat rise in my face, but I kept walking. I had not come this far to turn around in a lobby. When my name was called, I stood, smoothed the stained front of my blazer, and entered the interview room. Three people sat behind a long table. A woman with silver glasses, a younger doctor with a kind face, and an older man in a dark suit who had not looked up yet. "Good morning, Miss Carter," the woman said. "Please have a seat." I sat carefully. The younger doctor's eyes moved to my jacket, then back to my face. He did not look disgusted. He looked concerned. "Before we begin," he said gently, "is everything all right?" For a second, I almost lied. I almost said yes, everything was fine, because that was what I had been trained to say my whole life. But then I thought of my grandmother. So I folded my hands in my lap and answered calmly. "Last night, my only professional blazer was damaged with bleach. I couldn't replace it in time. I considered canceling, but becoming a doctor has been my dream since I was a child. I decided it was better to show up imperfect than not show up at all." The room went quiet. The woman with silver glasses nodded slowly. "That is a very honest answer." The older man finally looked up from my application. His eyes moved to my blazer first, then to my name. His expression changed. Not slightly, completely. He leaned forward and picked up the first page of my file. "Emily Carter," he said carefully. "Is your family from Oak Ridge?" My heart skipped. "Yes." He stared at me for a long moment. "Are you related to Dr. Margaret Carter?" My mouth went dry. She was my grandmother. The woman beside him turned toward him. "Dean Whitmore?"
But he was still looking at me.
"Your grandmother was one of the finest physicians this county ever produced," he said quietly. "She mentored half the doctors in this hospital system. Before she passed, she established a private education fund for a granddaughter who wanted to study medicine." My fingers tightened around the edge of my folder. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "What fund?" Dean Whitmore's face hardened, not at me, but at something behind the story. "We contacted your household years ago. We were told you had changed plans and were no longer pursuing medicine." The air seemed to leave the room. "No," I said. "I never changed plans." He opened a drawer, pulled out a thin file, and placed it on the table. There were documents, letters, scholarship instructions, a trust attorney's contact. "We never received your direct confirmation." My voice barely came out. "My parents told me she left nothing." The dean looked at my ruined blazer again, and this time his expression was not pity. It was understanding. "Miss Carter," he said, "I think your interview just became much bigger than admission." I left that room 40 minutes later with shaking hands, a copy of the attorney's number, and the dean's promise that he would personally review the old records. Outside, my phone was buzzing nonstop. 17 missed calls from my mother. Then one message appeared.
"Come home now. We need to talk."
I stared at my mother's message.
"Come home now.
We need to talk." Not "Are you okay?" Not "How was the interview?" Just another order, like every order I had obeyed for years. But this time, I wasn't going home to explain myself. I was going home with proof. When I entered, my parents were waiting. Dad stood by the fireplace, arms crossed. Mom sat on the sofa, pale and angry. Vanessa glanced at my stained blazer and smirked. "So," she said, "did they laugh?" I looked past her. "Where is Grandma's education fund?" The room went silent. Mom forced a laugh. "What are you talking about?" I opened my folder and placed the papers on the coffee table. "The trust Dr. Margaret Carter created for me. The medical school fund you told me didn't exist." Dad's jaw tightened. "Emily, you don't understand adult financial matters." "I understand enough," I said. "My name is on these documents." Mom's face turned gray. Vanessa leaned forward. "Wait, what fund?" I looked at her. "The one used for your wedding deposits." Her mouth opened, then closed. That was the answer I needed. Dad rubbed his forehead. "It wasn't just that. Tyler had debts. The house needed repairs. We were struggling. And I was working 12-hour shifts," I said calmly. "Studying at night. Paying your bills while you spent the money Grandma left for my future." Mom's eyes filled. "We were going to tell you." "When?" I asked. "After I gave up? After Vanessa destroyed my blazer, and I missed the interview?" Nobody answered. So I picked up my folder. "Dean Whitmore is reviewing the records." The trust attorney is expecting my call. From now on, everything goes through them. Mom stood. You'll destroy this family. I paused at the door.
No.
You did that when you stole from a girl who trusted you. 3 weeks later, my acceptance letter arrived. Congratulations, Miss Carter. On orientation day, I wore the same blazer, repaired with white flowers over every bleach stain. They tried to ruin my future. Instead, they marked the place where I took it back.